You know the story of the golem, right? This mythical creature from Jewish folklore, a man made of clay brought to life by, well, magic. Now, what if I told you that this ancient legend is making a huge comeback? Only this time, it's not about magic. It's about silicon and code and massive, massive data sets. Okay, so let's get into it because the conversations our ancestors were having about these man-made beings, they are echoing big time in our debates about artificial intelligence today. So check this out. We're talking about a text from over 1,500 years ago, the Talmud, and it gives us one of the very first thought experiments on artificial life. The great sage Rava, he actually creates a man, a golem. But there's a problem. He sends this golem to his friend, Rabbi Zira, who tries to talk to it. But nothing. The golem just stood there, silent. It couldn't reply. And that right there, that was the big deal. For the rabbis, that silence meant it was missing a true soul, a neshama. It didn't have that spark that allows for real communication, for real understanding. And this right here, this really gets to the core of what we're talking about. You see, on one side, the ancient Aramaic text, the code used to create a golem. And on the other, you see Python, the code used to build modern AI. The language is different, sure. But the ambition, the fundamental human drive to create something that thinks, it's exactly the same. The debates we're having right now about AI, they're not new. They are just the next chapter in a very, very old story.
All right, so here's where we're headed. First, we'll dig into these ancient legends and see how they connect to our new code. Then we're going to do a quick tour of how AI is already popping up everywhere, from the Talmud to cheesecake. After that, we'll get into the really tough ethical stuff, the halakha of tomorrow. And we'll finish up by asking a pretty wild question. Could AI be our next study partner?
Okay, let's jump right in with those historical echoes. You know all that anxiety we feel about AI? The fear that it's going to get too powerful or take away our jobs? Well, guess what? It's not new, not by a long shot. Jewish legal history has these amazing debates that sounds like they could have been pulled from a tech blog just yesterday.
So we already met Rabba's golem, the one that was silent, the one that lacked that inner spark. But there's another story that's maybe even more famous. It's about a 16th century rabbi whose golem didn't just stay silent, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, so huge that the rabbi who made it literally thought it was going to destroy the whole world. He eventually managed to stop it, but not before getting hurt himself. And that story just perfectly captures this timeless fear we have, that the things we create could spiral out of our control.
But look, let's be real. For most of us, the immediate fear isn't some world-destroying superintelligence. It's way more down to earth. It's, is a robot, is an AI going to take my job? And that fear of being replaced by a machine, that's not new either. In fact, there's an incredible debate from over 150 years ago that deals with this exact thing. Not over AI, but over Passover bread. Okay, this is absolutely fascinating. When machines first came along to bake matzah in the 1800s, it kicked off this massive fight. So you had Rabbi Shlomo Kluger on one side, and his main point wasn't about the ritual, it was about economic justice. He said these machines were going to put poor people, often women, out of the one job they counted on all year. Then on the other side, you have Rabbi Yosef Nathanson, who basically said, come on. He pointed out that the guy arguing with him was probably reading books made on a printing press, another machine that put scribes out of work. And then you had the middle ground, saying, look, if the matzah's kosher, it's kosher. Let's help the workers with charity, and remember that cheaper matzah helps poor people buy it. I mean, does that sound familiar? Because it should. It is literally the exact same conversation we're having about AI right now. All right, let's fast forward to today. Because all this philosophical stuff is great, but AI is actually out there, right now, being used in the Jewish world in some pretty wild and honestly brilliant ways. Let's do a quick-fire tour. Okay, starting with something just incredibly powerful. There's this organization in Israel, and they're using AI image generators to help Holocaust survivors. A survivor had this vivid, painful memory of her little brother in a pink coat, a brother she lost. By describing that memory, the AI could create images. It allowed her to find one that matched her memory, to make it tangible, a way to process a deep trauma in a totally new way. And of course, it was only a matter of time. We have AI rabbis. Now, bots like Rebbe.io are different from your standard ChatGPT. They aren't trained on the whole internet. They're trained on a specific, massive library of Jewish texts. So if you ask both of them about liability for a broken car, you get totally different answers. One gives you generic legal stuff, the other tries to give you an answer based on the Talmud. But, and this is super important, the people who made it are the first to tell you, hey, this thing can be wrong. Always check with the human. Okay, for this next one, you just need to know one quick thing. There's this ancient biblical law called shatnez. It basically says you can't mix wool and linen together in your clothes. For thousands of years, figuring that out required an expert to look at the fabric under a microscope. Well, until now. Yep, there's an app for that. It uses machine learning. You take a picture of the fabric's weave, and bam, it can tell you if you've got shatnez. Just a perfect little example of super modern tech solving a super ancient problem. And it's not just practical stuff. AI is becoming a total game changer for scholars. This is a tool that uses something called computational stylometry. It analyzes these incredibly complex ancient rabbinic texts that were built up over centuries. And it can spot when one author is quoting another, even when the original source was lost to history. It's basically like giving scholars a superpower. A kind of digital archaeologist that can sift through centuries of text. And this shows you exactly how it works. It's so cool. Researchers basically teach an AI what the writing style from different time periods looks like. The style of the Mishnah, the style of the Talmud. So when they feed it these mystery texts that no one can place, boom. The AI starts flagging passages as having a Tanhuma style, which is a huge clue that we might be looking at pieces of books from that genre that we thought were lost to history forever. And okay, to wrap up our little tour with something a bit more delicious, I give you the Cheesecake Wizard. It's an AI that just makes custom cheesecake recipes for you. You tell it what you like, and it whoops one up. Yeah, kosher ones too. It's fun, but it shows how this tech is really weaving itself into everyday life and culture.
Okay, so we've looked back at the past, we've seen what's happening right now, but we have to look ahead. We have to, because AI is pushing us to face some of the thorniest ethical and, well, in Jewish law, halakhic questions you can imagine.
You've heard of the trolley problem, right? The classic philosophical dilemma? Well, it's not a dilemma for a philosophy class anymore. It's a literal programming problem for self-driving cars. If a crash is going to happen no matter what does the car do? Who does it choose to hit? How do you write the code for that? And when you look at Jewish law for an answer, you get something really strong and honestly something that might surprise you. The basic idea is you cannot actively choose to murder one innocent person, even if it's to save 5 or 100 or 1,000 others. You can't hand one person over to an enemy to save a whole town. It's a really powerful rejection of simple math in life or death situations. So that idea of programming a car to make a calculated choice to kill someone, from this perspective, that's a total non-starter. And these aren't just life or death scenarios. The challenge hits right at the core of religious life, especially when it comes to something like Shabbat, the Jewish day of rest, a day where you're meant to step back from controlling the world around you. And the stakes here are really, really high. There's a leading rabbi, Rabbi Rimon, who puts it so starkly. He basically says, if we don't figure this out, if we don't find a way to apply the principles of Shabbat to our modern world, the Sabbath itself could just fade away. Just think about it. A smart home that learns what you do, lights that follow you, cars that drive you. Where do you draw the line between convenience and violating the spirit of rest? Which brings us to our last idea, and this one is a bit more out there. So far, we've talked about AI analyzing Jewish texts, but what if the connection goes deeper? What if the Talmud itself could actually inspire how we build AI? So there's this concept of a havruta in traditional Jewish learning. It's your study partner. You argue, you go back and forth. That's how you get to a deeper truth. Now imagine an AI as a kind of havruta. This AI has read literally every Jewish book ever written. It knows everything. But, and this is the golem all over again, it understands nothing. Its job is just to be a perfect database, a perfect sparring partner for a human to argue with and learn from. And this is where things get really wild. Some theorists are literally looking at the Talmud's own legal structure as a blueprint for a new kind of AI. Like, the Talmud has these core, unchangeable laws from Sinai, right? while the AI could have core, unchangeable logic. The Talmud has laws that evolve through debate and reasoning. The AI could have systems that learn and reconfigure themselves. The big idea, the really powerful thought here, is that this ancient way of organizing thought might just be the best model we have for building a new kind of intelligence. So here's where we land. We've journeyed from golems made of clay to, well, partners made of code. AI is becoming this unbelievable partner in exploring and preserving thousands of years of human wisdom. But that leaves us with the big question, the one we all have to think about. As these tools get smarter and more integrated into our lives, what happens to that uniquely human part of understanding? You know, the part that doesn't just come from knowing facts, but from arguing, from feeling, from living with the questions. That's the real conversation that's just getting started.